Welcome to the theater. Take a seat, grab some popcorn, and get ready for another horror movie double bill. This is Friday Night Fratricide.
Good evening, one and all, and welcome back to Friday Night Fratricide. You're here with your hosts, Fraser and Ewan, the Happy Brothers. Mm-hmm. I just took over there, sorry.
You did.
I was in the zone.
It's all right. We're happy, and we're both here.
Yeah. So, I can't even remember what this week's theme is called. I know the movies we're doing. What did we choose?
Based on comic books.
That's the one.
Is the theme this week.
Well done.
Yeah.
You've got a better memory than me.
It did take me a second to remember as well.
It's been a few weeks. We've not been in the studio for a couple of weeks now. Mm. You've been busy starting your job.
I have,
which is fun.
Yeah.
And I've been lazy, so
yeah, it
all just adds up, and we don't get anything done in these weeks.
No, I didn't get anything done for the past week.
No, but it's fine. We're back now, and we've got some kind of double bill for you.
Oh, these are two films. They sure are two films that I watched last week.
Yeah. We started off. We did Killer Condom.
Mm-hmm.
Was the first pick. Was my pick for last week. This week.
Yeah.
Picked it last week for this week.
Yeah.
I started off so well, and I've just
tanked
dive bombed. Right. Killer Condom was my pick. And your pick was 30 Days of Night.
Yeah.
Pretty tonally different films.
Very tonally different films. Yeah.
Killer Condom is, definitely... I don't even know if I would describe it as a horror. It's very sort of slapsticky comedy.
Yeah.
Billed as like a horror comedy. Whereas 30 Days of Night definitely leans a lot more into the horror.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vampires and darkness and such.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to see how they stack up against each other, and particularly how you stack them up against each other.
There's like no way to compare them. You can I don't think the two of them have anything in common.
There's our challenge.
That you can
There's
compare.
our challenge for today's episode is to find a common theme between the two of them.
The main characters of both are cops. There's a common There's not really much to compare them on, but they are both cops.
It is factually correct, I suppose.
Cop led.
Yeah.
They both. No, I got nothing.
No, that's it.
That's it.
Just cops.
They're cops.
They're
the main characters are both cops.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just go through it and see if we can find any more.
Yeah.
Any more similar threads.
Start with you.
Start with my pick, Killer Condom, or Condom des Grauens, is the German title. Mm-hmm. It is a German film. It's set entirely in New York.
Yeah.
But everyone speaks German. Mm-hmm. It's very bizarre. We spoke about this just before we started. I don't know what I was expecting.
No.
It was not this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was expecting like a sort of 60s Attack of the Killer Tomatoes style ridiculous horror, right?
Yeah.
And
that
what we
pretty
got
much what I was expecting as well
was like a satire on a police procedural mixed with some social commentary and some killer rubbers.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was very... Someone just stuck the script in a blender and was like, I'm just going to put a bit of this and a bit of this and a bit of this, and here we have a delicious condom smoothie.
Yes. Yeah, tasty. If I'd had the time, I really would have liked to have a look at the comics that it's based on, and see what they're like, because I really can't imagine, frankly, what the comics are like.
Yeah, I think they're relatively well known in Germany.
Yeah.
I don't know about the film itself. I was put onto it by a friend who I mentioned that I liked old stupid horror films, and she said, "I've got one for you."
Yeah.
So, I don't know how popular they are, but they're based on comic books. Condom des Grauens and Bis auf die Knochen, which translates to Down to the Bones.
Okay.
By Ralph Koenig.
Right.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing any of that correctly, so apologies if I'm not. But yeah, it's based on these two comic book series books, individual books. I don't know. I didn't do that much research. I just enjoyed the ride. So yeah, it's 1996, which is a lot later than it should be for a film like this. Yeah, it definitely has that 70s horror vibe.
I think it's definitely trying to do that. It's trying to play off of this like 70s very pulpy New York, like grimy kind of vibe, and it does that very well.
It does,
which
actually.
I liked about it.
Yeah,
it's one of the few things I liked about the film, or at least. It's not that I didn't like the film, but it's like it's one of the few things there that you've not muted your phone again.
Every time. Sorry.
Fucking reprobate. Yeah, it's definitely got like it's got some things going for it, but I think one of the things that I really liked most is this, like the atmosphere of like, it really captures that like grimy 70s, like sleazy.
Yeah.
You know, you're going into a motel with a prostitute kind of vibe, which is like
the motel that they use. What's it called? I wrote it down. It's called like the Sleazy Hotel. I'm sure. I thought I wrote it down. Maybe I didn't. Oh yeah, Hotel Quickie.
Hotel Quickie.
It's called the Hotel Quickie. So it's obviously based. They're leaning into it very heavily and making fun of that era of American films. But yeah, so the plot basically is a detective, Luigi Mackeroni.
Yeah.
Have to forgive the casual racism there for just the purpose of carrying on with this review. Played by Udo Samel, who has been in a fair few things. I think he's a fairly popular German actor.
Yeah.
But
there wasn't anything else that I recognized.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him from anything, personally. There has been a series of murders / mutilations at the Hotel Quickie, where he is a frequent patron. And it appears that prostitutes have been biting off the penises of their Johns, and that's how he's brought in. He goes to investigate, and he becomes one of the victims of what is not prostitutes, but is in fact a killer condom. Yeah, that's pretty much it. He then swears revenge on the condoms and seeks out answers for the rest of the hour and 40-minute runtime of this film. It was a lot longer than I wanted it to be. It was
definitely a lot longer than I thought it was going to be.
It did not need to be that long either. The plot, like, it starts pretty quickly. There's a scene at the start with it's a young girl and her like college professor, and he's kind of really sleazy and coming on to her and saying like, oh, I can get you a better grade if you sleep with me. And at that point I was like, is this a film I want to watch?
It's a bit
is this
it's a bit
the tone of the film? I don't really know if I can stomach this for an hour and a half, like and then he gets his cock bitten off and I was like, yeah, okay, good, fine, I'll take it.
Yeah, and there's like some like bottle of ketchup, like blood effects.
The gore is
sprayed
great.
all over her. Like,
yeah, it's ridiculous.
There's not much gore in the film at all, really. That's pretty much the only scene I can think of.
There's like a montage later on where there's a bunch of folk getting mutilated.
There's not an
lot.
awful lot.
Just kind of it's
there's
like
not a lot of blood.
Ketchup on the wall spray. Yeah, like it's not too bad.
And there's a scene with the guy in the bath at one point. I seem to remember there's.
Oh yeah,
it's not even that much blood. It's just like the water turns red. Yeah. So it's not a super bloody film.
No,
like the opening scene's probably the worst of it.
They definitely lean into it really heavily. The fact that it is a comedy, like they totally own it and just go balls to the wall. Like, this is silly. Deal with it.
Yeah,
balls to the wall. Yeah. So we're introduced to a few different characters. There's I want to say Billy. Is his name Billy?
The prostitute.
Yeah, the friend. So Luigi, our detective, is gay, very openly, and he is previous. I need to be really careful with how I word this because I don't want to offend anybody. We've talked about this before. There is a character in the film called Babette. Previously went by Bob.
Yeah.
You can see why I'm being careful to choose my words here, because it's not treated as delicately as it should be.
No.
Definitely a product of its time. That's probably how it was treated at the time. But nowadays, definitely could have been done a lot better. But the character of Babette is kind of tragic, really.
Yeah.
She was Luigi's girlfriend,
I guess, yeah.
And they were seeing each other, and then he kind of broke it off, and Babette's kind of hung up on him while Luigi starts to see this other Billy, the prostitute,
much younger.
excuse me, at the hotel quickie. There's all these kind of the weird like romantic subplots, but this weird love triangle. It's not even a triangle, but a weird like relationshipy stuff between the three of them throughout the film. Luigi is kind of infatuated with Billy, but he doesn't want to let on because he's a hardened detective, and he doesn't want to get in a relationship. He's been hurt before, and Babette's kind of fawning over Luigi, and it adds a bit of heart to the film, but when it's a film about killer condoms, I don't know if you really need that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it I don't know. It leads to some nice scenes, like Luigi gets very defensive over Billy later on in the film. He stands up for their relationship to one of the other detectives who's, calling him all kinds of slurs and whatever. And Luigi kind of stands up and says, "No, I'm a gay man. We're in love. Deal with it.
Yeah. If
you can't get with the program, you can. There's the door."
Yeah.
And he's very like, I kind of like that. I really like that scene in particular.
Yeah.
Where he kind of stands up to it and he's just like, people are gay. Get over it.
Yeah.
I was like, good on you, Luigi. You Italian stereotype.
I did love the fact that he's speaking German the entire time. He's not like doing, or I suppose potentially he could have been doing at what? How would you do an Italian American accent in German? I don't know.
Idea. Not a clue.
But like, it doesn't seem like he's doing the stereotypical like Italian American thing. No. He's just speaking German. But then he keeps talking about like, when I was a boy growing up in Sicily, my mama used to, and it's like, it feels so out of left field. You're just like, oh yeah, he's supposed to be Italian American.
But it's funny. I love how much they poke fun. It is there is a lot of satire in the film, poking fun at these American cop films.
Yeah.
You've got like the black police chief, who's sort of raining down hard on him, very a la like Lethal Weapon style. You've got him.
The chief's lighting a fire under my ass. And you better get this killer condom, and I'm gonna bust your back down to lieutenant so fast. It's like, oh my god, all right, I get it.
I don't know if this is real or not, and if it's real it's even funnier, but the characters that they interview at the start, the girl who was with the college professor, her parents come in and they say that they've flown in all the way from Farmville, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And I laughed, so I don't know if that's a real place, but if it is, that's even funnier.
That's one of, I was a bit sick while I was watching this film. I wasn't really with it fully, so I only made a handful of notes, and one of them is just the phrase Farmville, Oklahoma, because I found it very entertaining. It was
so good. Like, it's just, totally poking fun at like, just middle America. I loved it. And there's a lot of other like over the top stuff. There's the scene where Luigi's and Billy are getting down and they like cast a shadow, and he's turns out he's got this massive dong,
32 centimeters, I think he says.
He repeats that several times. It's precisely like 32 centimeters. And he like cast this huge shadow on the back of the room. It's really like over the top and silly, and I kind of loved it for that. There is, towards the middle of the film, it kind of slows down a bit. There's a lot of back and forth at the police station with Luigi and Billy, and at the hotel as well. It doesn't really progress a lot in the middle section of the film. It's only towards the end that we start to get a bit more. They're introduced to I want to say Czechoslovakian, but I don't know.
Who?
The woman who comes in.
Oh yeah,
who gets her nose bitten off.
I'm not sure. I thought she was Russian.
It wasn't Russian. She was speaking. It was an Eastern European language. I thought there was something in the subtitles about her being Czech, but possibly not.
That's a good point. 96. It would have been the Czech Republic then, not
Republic.
Czechoslovakia.
Yeah. What did I say?
We said Czechoslovakia.
Is that wrong? Which is it now?
It's the Czech Republic now.
Okay.
And Slovakia. They split.
Sorry,
They're two
yeah,
separate
you're right.
countries. They got divorced.
Yeah. I'm sorry. My geography and my history
But I don't actually know
awful,
when.
So
I was thinking early 90s. I think it was maybe the 80s. Kind of mid-80s that happened.
The fall of the Soviet Union, probably, right?
No, it was... Well, not related.
Around that time.
It might have been around the same time, but I don't think it was related.
Okay. Never mind. This is not a...
This isn't a geography podcast.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Thankfully. I wouldn't last very long. Yeah, so this woman comes in and she's had her nose bitten off by a condom in the park. And as it starts to get more widespread at this point, there's a senator, an American senator, or like governor or something.
He's like running for president.
Yeah, who gets attacked. He gets attacked in the bathroom. His plot is completely tangential. There's not related at all, but they just added it in, and it was hilarious. But this young Eastern European woman comes in, and she's screaming about it, and she basically takes them to the church. Billy goes with them because he knows the language she's speaking. For some reason, I guess he's a man of many talents, being from the Hotel Quickie.
Yeah.
He has a lot of clientele. Is the implication? I don't know. Whatever. He speaks the language. So they all go out. They find this church that has like a hidden door underneath it down to this secret laboratory, which is housing a Soviet scientist who has been kidnapped by a Chinese agent. Is that right?
Possibly.
I
lost track a little bit at this point.
I was kind of, I can't remember how he came into the film. He is mentioned slightly before this.
Yeah.
But he's basically been kidnapped and he's being kept there in the church near the hotel, I guess. I don't really know. There's a lot that doesn't we'll move on. We'll move past it. Don't question it too much. He's being kept captive, and sideways to this, Luigi goes to meet the head of the hospital, the surgeon who saved his other testicle after one of them was bitten off. Yeah. And it turns out that she's actually in cahoots with the scientist.
Yeah.
And this is where, like, this... You were talking about the other bit coming out of left field. This came out of left field for me. I was like, this is not where I expected it to go. I don't know what kind of conclusion I thought was going to happen. It wasn't this. Yeah. It wasn't this at all. So she kidnaps Luigi and holds him at gunpoint, and they go down to the lab, and there's the Soviet scientist, and it turns out that she's forcing him to create sentient condoms to attack and mutilate and kill all fornicators in the world. Yeah. So that she can be closer to God and create like a heaven on earth filled with man and woman, and it got very religious and weird, and I don't really know. Basically, she's a weirdo, like right-wing Christian who believes that love is between man and woman and they should reproduce. And
condoms are bad.
Yeah.
You should only be having sex for reproduction, and sex should only be between a man and a woman.
Yeah. It was very...
Don't take me saying that out of context, please.
Yeah. It was very like, okay, so we're doing like a evil conservative plot in 1996.
Yeah.
This is very like topical and like worryingly so for a film that's now almost 30 years old.
Yeah. It's just there's always going to be right-wing lunatics, isn't there?
I know.
Unfortunately.
But it wasn't what I expected, basically.
in some ways the film is really dated, and in some ways it's really not dated.
I know.
It's like it's that like weirdly, like it just could fit into any time period, really.
Yeah. So we've got this crazy doctor who's wanting to take over the world for God or whatever. She's kidnapped all of Luigi's friends and his co-workers, puts them on this like giant sex swing to get nibbled at by the living condoms. I don't know why.
No.
It is just like a big swing set, and they're all strapped in.
Yep.
And they're all getting nibbled.
Yep.
The little feeties are getting nibbled by these condoms.
At least one of them's got to be into that, right?
I mean, there's only like 5 or 6 of them.
I suppose, maybe.
Statistically,
Nah.
what's the statistic on feet fetish?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe 1 in 100.
Yeah.
Or something.
I don't know. You might beat those odds here. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't look very pleasant, but the swing looked kind of fun. But the the condom nibbling didn't.
Yeah, less so.
And she's actually constructed a mega mother condom,
A giant one.
specifically for Luigi because his dick is too big.
Yeah. It's got like the predator mandibles.
Yeah,
It's got like the bits.
I mean, I know he's about to get killed by a toothy condom, but you got to feel a little bit proud that she had to specifically construct one solely for the size of his penis. Like, if I was in his situation, I'd be like, yeah, I might be about to die, but I'm going out on a high, you know?
Yeah.
Thankfully, it doesn't come to that. He manages to subdue the queen. He kills the Chinese agent who's kind of lurking in the background. It doesn't have any speaking lines, I don't think.
He's just there.
And shoves the doctor into the pool underneath the swing set full of condoms. It's all very cliche ending. Like, the hero wins and he gets his love, Billy, and he reconciles with his friends, Babette and the other detective who was homophobic to him earlier.
Yeah.
And evil is defeated, and then he gets praise from the police chief at the end. And I don't know if it's like satirically formulaic at this point, or if it's actually just like wrapping everything up. It's kind of hard to tell, given the plot up until this
I think this
point.
is maybe one of those points where they can kind of benefit from being like, yeah, we're making fun of films being formulaic and having like rushed endings, and that's just kind of an excuse for them to not bother having a decent ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they all go off into the sunset together. Billy and Luigi have a happy old life.
Yeah.
Babette finds love with the other detective. They seem to be getting it on at the end of the film as well.
Yeah.
So everyone gets a happy ending. It's sweet. It's nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was kind of like, Luigi Mackeroni, you've won my heart.
Yeah. Quits the force to settle down with his boy toy.
I know.
Good for him.
I don't know. The whole film it has ups and downs, right? I think it has more ups than downs.
Yeah.
I actually wound up really enjoying it. I thought it was a really good laugh. I thought the satire was really funny and really on point for these kind of films that they're making fun of. I thought there was some really genuinely like laugh out loud moments. The scene, it's like blink and you miss it, but he goes into the hospital when he's first in the hospital getting treated. The doctor comes in or the detective comes in, and there's another like person in the bed next to his, and the beeping for his heart monitor is going, and then it just stops, and it just like stops.
I missed that.
This dude just dies in the corner, and nobody cares. And I just thought that was really funny. There was some great references. Like there's a scene where Babette comes to like frighten Luigi in the shower, and there's like a psycho scene. Jaws, when there's the senator, he gets killed in the bathtub or gets his cock bitten off in the bathtub. The condom like swims up and the Jaws theme plays. There was little moments like that were just really like funnier than they should have been for a film like this. So I don't know, it like Luigi, the film touched my heart as well. It was kind of endearing towards the end. And the commentary in it is kind of nice as well. Like I know there's some stuff in it, specifically like the sort of trans plot was a bit dated and kind of you had to kind of gloss over that.
Yeah.
Some of the language they use and everything. But the like homophobic stuff, or sorry, lack of addressing of homophobic things.
I guess.
I don't know how to phrase that.
I know what you mean.
The gay stuff.
Yeah.
The gay stuff was treated well. It was treated with care. More care than what I just said by calling it gay stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like
yeah.
I don't know what the proper term for like that.
Well, it's
is.
like
the representation, the gay representation.
This is one of very few films I can think of that features a main character who is a gay man that's not just like a perfectly groomed hairless twink. You know? Like having a beefy older gay man as a main character in a film is not common at all. Definitely not in the 90s.
I mean, I couldn't think off the top of my head, definitely.
So, like, doing that is, I thought, pretty cool.
Yeah.
And, like, some of the references to, like, gay culture were actually kind of interesting because they weren't totally, like, stereotypical and offensive. They were actually that kind of semi-realistic sort of portrayal of what, like, gay clubs are actually like, and not just, like... oh, it's a gay club, they're going to go and it's like just everyone's wearing pink and listening to Britney Spears and drinking Cosmopolitans. It's like, it's this like grimy and everyone's wearing leather and it's like more, it's a side of that culture that people don't show. People don't want to show because they don't like it. And I appreciated that this film showed that.
Yeah. And even though the film is very ridiculous and very over the top, there are a lot of moments that you're genuinely like, this is kind of being treated with care. Like the way that Luigi stands up for himself and stands up for like Billy and stuff as well.
Yeah.
It's not played for a laugh. Like those scenes are actually quite sincere in the middle of what is a ridiculous film.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I liked that. I liked that. I appreciated it. So yeah, overall, enjoyable watch. Pretty ridiculous. You need to lean into it.
Yeah.
3 out of 5.
3 out of 5.
No, 3.5 out of 5. Sorry.
3.5.
3.5 out of 5.
Wow. Okay.
It's what I gave this. I thoroughly enjoyed myself with this film.
Good. Glad you enjoyed yourself. It's more than I gave it.
You didn't enjoy it.
It's not that I didn't enjoy it. I thought that it was kind of fun for a while. It definitely got boring around the middle. Towards the end, like the climax feels a bit rushed and feels very weird and like not very consistent with the rest of the film, which kind of took me out of it. So by the end I was kind of just waiting for it to be over, which wasn't great. There are elements of it I liked. There are definitely bits that I thought were funny. I liked the characters. I liked a lot of the kind of portrayals of like the gay characters and stuff. I thought was good. I really didn't like that maybe a solid half of the jokes were just them being like, haha, we're dead naming a trans woman. And it's like, doing it once or twice, I would have been like, okay, it's the 90s, I can forgive that. It's dated and it's not great, but like, whatever, it was almost 30 years ago. They keep doing it.
And it was like, jokes specifically aimed
right the way through the film.
Her,
They like keep doing it over and over and over again. And I was like, all right, it's getting old.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't enjoy it that much. There were a few kind of visual gags that I thought were really funny. There was one really good recurring one where like, like the fact that Luigi is always smoking.
Yeah,
I thought was really funny. Just he's always wearing the glasses, he's always wearing the trench coat, and he's always smoking, regardless of where he is. When he's like at home taking a shower, he's still wearing his sunglasses and smoking. And there's quite a few shots where it's like he's in a lift and people get off the lift and he's stood at the back and he's smoking in the trench coat and everything, and there's a big sign that says no smoking.
Yeah.
And I like stuff like that was really funny, and I kind of just wish there was more of that in it.
Yeah.
I wish they went a little bit more along the lines of something like Airplane, or there was like Abrams Zucker films where they were like Naked Gun, or like Top Secret or whatever, where they're like really going for these like farcical, like really goofy visual gags.
Yeah.
They could have done something like that and it would have been a lot more enjoyable. Then you probably wouldn't have been able, I guess maybe it would have just, the satire would have had to be dialed up to sillier levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't hate it, but I wouldn't watch it again.
Okay. Fair enough.
I gave it 1.5.
1.5.
1.5.
Oh, that's low.
It is low.
I was hoping you'd enjoy it.
It is low.
But that's fair enough.
There were elements of it that I thought were quite funny, and like kind of the first maybe half hour or so, I was sitting watching it quite contentedly, like, yeah, this is all right, this is fine. And then after that, I was like, okay, right, wrap it up.
There is a lot of like filler in the middle. I feel like they padded it out deliberately, to kind of make it a more feature length film. There was a lot of stuff that could have been cut, but there was also a lot of potential there. Yeah, I did at one point draw the kind of Naked Gun comparison with that style of humor, the Leslie Nielsen, one-liners and...
Yeah, like, you've got the main character being very serious in such a silly setting.
Jokes.
And, like, the kind of, a lot of the sort of cop jokes and playing on the stereotypes of cop stuff. It is very Naked Gun, which I like. I love the Naked Gun. So, yeah, I kind of... If they had leaned into that a lot more, I would have liked it more.
I want a sequel.
A sequel? Killer Condom 2.
I think that'd be good.
This time it's Naked Gun. Excuse me.
Killer Condom 2. Both testicles.
Both testicles.
Yeah. They come back for Luigi's other bollock. Well, yeah. There is Killer Condom. I would recommend it if you're in for a laugh and like a bit of cheesy, silly horror. Yeah. It was fun. It was fun. Right. On to our second film of the evening, since we have not really anything to break it apart at the moment.
Nope, we've not got anything.
Just jump straight in to the second half of our double bill.
Yep.
30 Days of Night.
Yeah.
You want to take it away on this one?
I will take it away on this one. Yeah. Like I mentioned, I was a little bit sick last week, so when I was watching these, I wasn't really taking any notes, and I think this is maybe more of a comment on the film and not a comment on how I was feeling while I was watching it, but it did blur a little bit together for me. Like 30 Days of Night felt like a bit one note right the way through. I didn't dislike it, I just feel like there weren't any like super notable plot points. It's kind of like the same one thing happening throughout the whole film, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it is sort of a survival film as much as it is a horror film.
Yeah.
It's them making it through the 30 Days of Night.
Yeah. So yeah, 30 Days of Night. It's set in Barrow, Alaska, which is a small town with a population of like 300 or something. There's at some point you see a sign that's like, whatever, small population. That in the middle of winter has a polar night that lasts a month, lasts 30 days, because they're so far north that the sun never rises for 30 days over the depths of winter, which is a really cool setting for a vampire film.
Oh yeah.
I really liked that about it. I thought that was a really cool, unique setting. It makes a lot of sense that vampires would want to go to a place like that, so it's a very cool thing to do. I didn't read the comic that this is based on. I wanted to. I didn't really have time. I was going to try and read a little bit of it and see what the comic was like. I, for some reason, thought that it was by the same people that did The Walking Dead, but I don't think it was. I think it was maybe like
some similar art styles.
Kind of similar style. I don't know if maybe some of the same people worked on it.
Possibly.
Or if it was like a similar publisher or something. But yeah, so you've got the main character is Josh Hartnett. I wanted to call him Harnell. Josh Hartnett, who was who I always think of as Jamie Lee Curtis's son from Halloween H20.
I
can't think, what else was he in?
The Faculty.
He was in The Faculty, of course. That's another one that I have not watched. We need to do The Faculty.
You've not watched The Faculty?
Faculty.
I'm definitely picking
I actually did, in our little list of like themes that we will need to do at some point in the future. I'm pretty sure I wrote schools specifically because I want to do The Faculty. We could do schools at some point and we could talk about The Faculty.
He's in Black Hawk Down as well.
I have seen that, but that was a while ago I saw that, so I probably wouldn't have recognized him. But anyway, yeah, so I always picture him as like being perpetually 18 because like he was most famous in kind of the late 90s.
Got that face.
And in this he's like 30. Yeah. He's the sheriff of the town. he has a wife who is a fire marshal or something.
Yeah, I think she's the firefighter.
Whatever. Who's visiting the town. They're separated. I was actually listening back to our technology episode where we talked about The Ring, and I was saying that I really liked the dynamic of a divorced couple leading a horror film, and this one goes a little bit more into the generic romance between the two characters. It's like, okay, they're gonna reconcile by the end of the film, but I still like, they're not just like strangers who are meeting for the first time and falling in love. They're a couple who have separated because they don't like each other very much.
Also, she's played by Melissa George.
Yeah.
Who's gorgeous.
Yes.
And you've got Josh Hartnett, who is gorgeous.
Yeah.
That's a power couple right there.
When you're in a small town in Alaska with like 100 odd people, and you're clearly the two hottest people in that town, you're so they're Stella, the wife, she's planning on leaving before the 30 days starts, before the night begins. But then she misses her plane because she gets in a little fender bender with a big truck,
proper
with
like
drill on the front of it.
It's like,
yeah, big thing. So then she needs to find somewhere to stay. She calls Eben, who I kept thinking they were calling Evan.
It's such a silly name. What kind of name is Eben?
I don't know. It's
Eben Flo.
Eben Flo. That's his name. It's Sheriff
Her name
Eben
should have been
Flo.
Her name should have been Florence.
Or if her name was Florence.
That would have been so good.
Yeah.
That would have been so good.
Yeah. That would have been good. His name's Eben Olsen.
Eben Olsen.
Which I'm guessing... I would... Yeah. Like, the north of the States had a lot of, like, Scandinavian immigrants. Like, I'm thinking of, like, Minnesota has a lot of, like, Scandinavian names. I don't know if they would have... I was thinking it ends in son.
Oh, well, yeah,
but I don't know if they would have necessarily gone that far west.
I don't think they even thought about it this point.
Probably didn't. They were just like, just give him a funny name. I shouldn't say that any names are funny because there's probably somebody out there with a real name.
Yeah, Ewan.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I'm not... Glass houses, man. So yeah, the two of them are now stranded together in the town over the 30 days of night because there's no way out of the town other than from the airport, and the airport is closed for the next 30 days. So they need to stay with... well, they've got various other characters. There's
the deputy.
There's the deputy who has a wife and kids for now. There's foreshadowing. There's Jake, who is Eben's younger brother, and their is it their grandma? I assumed it was their mum, but it's their...
It's really weird, right? Because Jake, I think, calls her Gran.
Yeah.
But Eben calls her by her first name, which I can't remember. It's a really weird dynamic. I couldn't really figure it out.
Yeah.
But I think it's supposed to be their Gran.
Okay, there you go. So they're forced to stay together.
Yeah.
At this point, some weird guy who I think is only referred to as the Stranger, who's played by Ben Foster, shows up in the town, and he was probably my favorite part of the film because he's really weird.
He was pretty creepy.
He has like a Creole accent, I guess. I don't really know exactly what it is he's trying to do. He sounds like Cajun or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
But he's like, I want to eat some fresh meat. And he's got like rotten teeth and everything.
A bowl of mince.
And he wants to eat a bowl of raw mince. And it's like, all right, mate, get your raw mince. Yeah, like... I wasn't entirely sure what the deal was. Like, was he a vampire? Was he being hunted by the vampires? Had he been, like, partly turned into a vampire?
Are you asking me, or is that a rhetorical question?
It's, I guess, a rhetorical question. Did I miss something? I probably missed something.
So he's the stranger at the start of the film, right? Yeah. You see, the opening shot of the film is a ship that's crashed on the shore.
Yeah.
And you see someone
like
walking away from it.
Yeah.
So that's him, and then the next scene that introduces Eben, you find that all of the phones, all the satellite phones in the town have been stolen and burned in a big like fire pit. So and then he goes and kills all the dogs. So I instantly hate him for that.
Yeah.
But he's basically working for the vampires while it's daylight to prepare the town for them coming, under the promise that he will then be turned into a vampire.
Right. So he's like a thrall
Yeah,
like
pretty
a
much.
vampire,
Pretty much.
familiar or whatever. Okay, cool. Right, I missed that.
Yeah.
But there you go. Yeah, I didn't. I missed that was him that burned the phones, and I forgot about.
It doesn't show you. It doesn't show him burning the phones or him killing the dogs either.
I forgot about the burned phones,
But-
and I remembered the dogs. I assumed that the dogs was just the vampires that killed the dogs. But
It
no,
was still daylight.
It was still daylight.
They can't be out during
There
the
you
day.
Fair enough.
What is this? Twilight?
Anyway, yeah. So they are then stuck in the town. A bunch of vampires descend on the town. They kill the stranger who is chained up in the jail cell. They break his neck, and everyone kind of goes on the run in the town. They hold up in like the attic of a house. There's a house that was boarded up because whoever lived there left for the winter. But they knew that they could get into the attic and they'd be able to hide up there.
Yeah.
So they're up there for a while.
Well, this all happens very quickly. Like, it all happens in like the first or second night.
Yeah.
And like the whole town is slaughtered, save for like what, a dozen people or so. And that's like Eben and his crew.
You don't really see that much.
Even the Gran. The Gran gets killed and we don't see it. She gets killed off screen.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jake gets away somehow.
Yeah.
I almost feel like there must have been deleted scenes.
There probably will be.
Because
or at least
it makes no sense.
Being based on a comic, they probably went more in depth in a comic.
Yeah, that's true.
Needed to skim over some of it, unfortunately.
Yeah. But yeah, they end up the last survivors, save for a few that kind of get picked off in the background.
Yeah.
They all end up in the attic of this house.
Yeah. So they're in the attic of the house for a while, 18 days apparently.
Yeah.
And then they go, because there's a blizzard, they decide that they're going to leave, and at this point they go to the shop.
They need to pick up supplies.
They like hold up in the shop to get supplies, get some food and whatever. And yeah, like it was kind of at this point where I sort of lost track, because it was like a lot of very similar scenes and lots of like back and forth, and like the characters are splitting up and then they're seeing each other again, and then it's like, oh, and then it's 27 days later and it's like,
yeah, it did not, there was not really any clear passage of time other than the subtitle that says day 5, day 18, day whatever.
Yeah.
And if you miss that, because it's only on the screen for a split second, you're like, this could be the same night.
Is this all happening in one night?
Yeah, there's no real sense of time passing, which is one of my bigger problems with
one
the
of the
film.
gripes with the film. Yeah, I think that's kind of the downside of getting such an interesting setting where it's like, oh, you've got 30 days where there's no sunshine. Perfect for vampires. Isn't that a really interesting setting for a vampire film? But then it's like, well, yeah, but how do you denote to the audience that like time is passing? Yeah, how do you make a film go over the, like a survival against vampires film last for 30 days? It's really difficult. They clearly need to just do it by being like, and then there were 18 days where they stayed in an attic and did nothing. And then there were another 10 days when they stayed in a shop and did nothing. And it's like, right. They could have just, like, the plot of the film wouldn't have changed if it was one day of night and it was just happened over the course of 24 hours.
That's
a
honestly
small town
true.
Getting killed by vampires, which there's not really any way around that. Like, there's no way that they could have, unless they had made, if they had like The Walking Dead, if it had been like a really like long form and they had done it over the course of like a couple of seasons of a TV show or something, like trying to fit 30 days worth of interesting stuff into one film is difficult. So everything kind of just runs together and then it feels like it's weirdly paced.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a shame.
But then I would argue also that trying to pad out that into a full TV series would go too far in the other direction.
Yeah, maybe.
Where there'd be so much padding, you'd have to fill out all of these days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't know how you would find that happy medium.
Don't know. Maybe just leave it as a comic book.
Maybe, yeah, that's...
to be honest.
Honestly,
maybe just leave it as a comic book. Yeah, but we get some cool stuff in the meantime before it reaches the end of the 30-day long night. There's a character called Bo who we is introduced right at the beginning, and then suddenly he's there again later on in the film.
Yeah.
Who's a big, gruff, mean-looking man who drives a tractor.
But he's got a big heart.
He's got a heart of gold. And then he drives a tractor, runs over a bunch of vampires and into the door of a saloon, and then tries to blow himself up, and then he gets killed by the vampire guy, and yeah.
The vampire designs and some of the kills in this film are really brutal. And that's probably my biggest takeaway from this film, is how cool the vampires are. Yeah,
I agree. I think the vampires in this are like one of the more interesting types of vampires in horror films. Like I've always said that I think my favorite like approach to writing vampires has been like Anne Rice vampires, like Interview with the vampires, where they're just like French and sad the whole time. You know, I really like that, because it's like that's what would happen if you had to live for an eternity. You'd all become French and sad.
True.
Which I liked. But then this one was just like, they're like primeval.
Oh, it's like
and
feral.
Animalistic.
Yeah.
And they speak their own language that we don't understand, and it sounds very like guttural and prehistoric, which is so cool. But they are intelligent enough. I mean, they're wearing clothes. The way that there's like the scene when he puts his little talon claw on the record player. And kind of screams. And there's a scene when someone's begging for her life. There's a woman begging for her life, and she kind of says like, "Oh, please, God." And he like looks up and says, "No, God," and then kills her.
Yeah.
And it's like they're intelligent enough that they are able to like mess with people, but they just don't care. They're just feral, violent animals, which is really cool.
Kind of terrifying.
It's
as well.
pretty scary.
Yeah.
And they've got like the really sharp pointy teeth and the claws, and like
some of them
got,
are sort of like Nosferatu-esque.
Yeah.
Sort of very pale, elongated faces.
And like black eyes. Yeah.
But yeah, like on that, Danny Huston, who plays the lead vampire, he's probably the best thing about this film.
Yeah,
I would argue.
Very cool.
I think he's great.
Yeah.
He really like nails that evil monster role. I don't know what else he's been in, actually.
No, I don't think I
think he's Angelica Huston's brother?
Oh.
Cousin?
Could be.
Half-brother, maybe? I'm sure I read that.
Half-brother.
Half-brother.
And son of director John Huston, apparently.
Yeah.
Who did The Maltese Falcon and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre and The African Queen.
Well, how about that?
There you go. Yeah. What else was he in? I'm going to look at it now. He was in Children of Men. He was in...
What else was he in?
Robin Hood, 2010's Robin Hood, which was the one with...
Was it the one with...
Russell Crowe?
Yeah, Russell Crowe.
He was in Wonder Woman, apparently. American Horror Story.
Okay. He's been in a few things then.
Succession, more recently. Yellowstone as well.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
He's got a very distinctive look about him.
Does have a very distinctive look.
He looks like a businessman. He looks like he should be in Succession.
He looks like he should be in Succession.
Yeah.
And he is in Succession. He looks, he has this like, he has that kind of Jack Nicholson sort of furrowed brow manic energy, which I really like. Perfect for playing a vampire, I guess. Yeah. We get a great scene, which I'm barely remembering. And I'm trying to find it on Wikipedia to see exactly what happens. But there's a scene, they're in the shop. I think it's when they're still in the shop. So I don't want to skip past it, but I think we have gone past it. But there's a character that has been bitten. Yeah. And they have this, he like kind of just lets himself get killed because he knows that he's going to turn into a vampire. And there's a scene when they go through into the other room and you don't see anything. It stays in the main room where all the survivors are. And you just hear like the axe coming down, like he's just, been beheaded to stop him from turning into a vampire. But there's this kind of off-angled shot where the door is on the far end of the frame, and on the other side there's just like Stella's just sitting on the floor with her head in her hands. Yeah, I thought it was a really cool shot.
Yeah, that's after they get out of the store. They go back to the police station briefly.
Yeah, they go back to the police
station.
And
it's revealed that I can't remember the guy's name, but he was like the sort of positive influence on the group.
Yeah.
And it turns out that he's been bitten and everyone's really sad. And then, he gets his head chopped. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. Speaking of sad, we catch up with
Speaking of other depressing scenes in this film,
we catch up with Billy again. Deputy Billy, who introduced he was like one of the first characters we see right at the beginning.
Yep.
Him and Eben kind of cracking jokes and having a good time. And we don't see him for quite a long time. And then we get back and we find out that he's murdered his family because he was like, I didn't want them to turn into vampires, so I killed my wife and my 2 children. And it's like, whoa, mate, this is like grim.
Yeah, and he's just been like, he couldn't bring himself to.
Oh, he tried to kill himself in the gun jam.
He said he tried, but you can unjam a gun.
Yeah.
So he's obviously just a massive pussy.
He is.
Didn't follow through.
He didn't.
That's a joke. That's in the context of the film. Don't actually take my words serious.
Yeah. It reminded me of very, very. One of my other big controversial horror opinions is that I absolutely hate the ending of The Mist.
That's not controversial.
Some people love it. Some people think that it's like the best ending to any horror film ever. I think it's absolute garbage.
It's bleak.
It just feels cheap though. It's so bleak. It just feels, and then it's like, oh, whoopsie, the army's here. Like, okay, I hate it.
I don't know.
I could rant about the ending of The Mist for ages, so I'm not going to. But like, I kind of got.
It is that kind of vibe.
It's that sort of thing where they're just like
hopelessness, and that's the only way out.
Yeah.
And then, oh wait, there is another hope.
Yeah.
The survivors come and find him. I don't know why, right? Because I haven't seen this film in a while. But I was thinking, they go into the room with Billy, and he's kind of crying on the floor and seems a bit off. And there's a sheet over the bed with like blood stains where they were shot, where this family were shot. And I don't know why, but I have this memory of that sheet being pulled off and there being vampires. And Billy's actually a lure to get them in.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I remember that. If I've just completely imagined it, if it was a deleted scene.
Could be a deleted scene.
Not a clue. But I was like so convinced that was about to happen. And then it just doesn't. And it's just his family's been killed. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
That's fun.
There you go. Yeah. So then they go to the Wikipedia is calling it a utilidor.
The utilidor.
Which is a big power station kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like a power station on the edge of town.
For the town. They go there and then they set up at the beginning, it's like someone's had it's the guy with the helicopter.
Yeah.
Someone who has a helicopter, it got trashed, presumably by your man Ben Foster.
Ben Foster, the stranger.
And they talk about like, oh, we've got this like big industrial grinder and we're going to chuck the bits of the helicopter into it, and oh, don't put your hand in there because it'll tear your hand off.
Yeah,
and then at the end they turn it on and it's like, oh, someone's getting their hand torn off. And then it turns out it's Billy. He chucks a vampire and then he gets
this whole scene is brutal, by the way.
It's pretty gory. Like he pulls his hand out and he's screaming and he's like just got the stump with the big bone sticking out of it, and it's pretty grim.
And he got bitten as well.
And he gets bitten as well.
Evan has to hack his head off.
Has to take his head off.
Yeah.
Fun. Fun on the bun.
Yeah, and it gets even more fun.
And it gets
by
even
the
more
end
fun.
With so that's the last of the survivors. Like there's like what, 5 of them left or something.
I think there's like Jake still there.
Jake and one of the other women.
There's another. Yeah, there's an older woman.
Oh, and there's a younger woman who was trying to have the threesome.
There's a younger woman who tries to have the threesome, and then they both get killed right at the beginning of the film.
And she's just like,
still alive.
No sex for me.
Yeah, she's still alive.
But she survives, so maybe she'll live to see another threesome.
Stella,
Good for her.
Stella, at this point, is like, suddenly they're like, where's Stella gone? And then she's just like underneath a car.
She's run off, because remember she sees the kid. There's the young girl.
Oh, yeah.
And she like dives off, breaks away from the group to go and save the girl, but ends up getting like cut off between the vampires and the group. So she's like hiding under a car. It's like an overturned boat, or then a car, or the other way around.
Yeah.
She like moves to try and get away from the vampires, but Eben. I hate this ending, man. I'm just gonna say it now.
Yeah,
I hate it. It's so dumb.
It is dumb.
Eben decides that the only way to save Stella, because the vampires are between the group and her, so she can't get away, and it's starting to freeze, and the vampires are setting the town on fire. It's all happening at once. There's no way Stella's going to get here. So what am I going to do? I'm going to inject myself with Billy's blood to turn myself into a vampire, and then I'm going to go and wail on the lead vampire so that Stella can escape. Just fucking leave her. Just leave her, dude.
Yep.
She's gone.
It's not worth turning yourself into
Save
a
yourself,
vampire.
man. I'm sorry. She made her choice.
Yeah.
She went after that kid. It didn't pan out. Tough.
Yeah.
Game over, man. It does lead to a very cool fight scene. I'll give it that.
It's fine.
It's pretty cool.
I was kind of like,
liked it.
it's a bit kind of mid-2000s.
Yeah. A lot of the action scenes are
horror
shot
kind of-
with that. I don't know how it's done, and I don't know if there's a specific name for it. There must be, but it's that camera, the cinematography of the fight scenes, where it's like, it's a different frame rate to the rest of the film, so everything seems very accentuated, like all the movements and everything. Yeah. I don't know what the term for it is.
No.
And it'll bug me because I always wondered, but I can never find a solid answer for what it's called. But it looks really cool. So all the fight scenes have this sort of
the weird effect
thing on it. Effect, yeah.
Frame rate thing.
So they all look really cool and fast paced. And yeah, Eben wails on the vampire, and eventually, as the vampire, he gives himself super strength because vampires have super strength, obviously.
Yeah.
The head vampire like runs towards him, and he like just punches clean through his skull,
punches through the back of his head. Yeah,
like that was dope.
That was pretty dope. That was pretty dope.
I have to give it that. That was cool. And then all the other vampires are like, "Yep, nope, not dealing with that. I'm out," and they all just leave.
They just leave.
They just bail.
And then the sun comes up a second later anyway, so presumably they all die.
Yeah.
Yeah. The sun comes up and Eben dies. He burns
in
turns to
Stella's
ash,
arms,
and Stella's like,
yeah,
you're my husband. You're my vampire husband, and I love you." And then he dies.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And that's
the
it.
end of the film.
Roll credits.
Yeah. That was, it was fine. Like, I definitely enjoyed aspects of it. I think one thing that I've not really mentioned is I think that it was really, really well shot. It really liked.
Pretty gorgeous.
Like, the beginning and the end of the film, because obviously it's played around, like, the sun being down for a month. There's lots of these really scenic shots of, like, the sun setting, and then at the very end, the sun rising, which is really cool and very well done. The snow in the darkness throughout most of the film, and just, like, the scenery in general, and lots of these, like, long, slow panning shots of this, like, town in darkness, with, like, in the middle of a blizzard and everything.
Yeah.
Really, like, gorgeous cinematography. And I really liked the vampires. The vampires were really cool.
They were cool.
They were really great. There were lots of cool scenes with vampires. There's a little girl vampire at one point, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
Very briefly.
Yeah.
But a lot of films don't have the balls to have little kids turn into monsters anymore.
And then get their heads cut off.
And they'll get their head cut off.
Yep.
Lots of films don't do that.
Yep.
And I appreciate a film that does.
Yeah.
I can't remember who it was. Someone a while ago was talking about that, like, it's so weird being a horror fan if you, like, recommend a horror film to somebody and you're just like, oh my god, it's so great. A kid dies in it. Like, that's such a high praise for a horror film, because what you're really saying is, like, this is a film that's not generic. It's willing to push the envelope a little bit, and it's willing to put in something that's a little bit shocking and that people don't want to see, like a child dying. But it just makes you sound like an absolute monster, being like, it's a great to watch a film watching a child die.
I'm reminded to last week's episode where you recommended Who Can Kill a Child?
Yeah.
In which
lots of
several children die.
Oh god, was that only last week?
Was that last week? The week before? I don't know.
Well, it's been a couple of weeks since we recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. Who Can Kill a Child? Boy, howdy. Okay,
yeah. So what kind of ranking do you give it then?
I gave it 3.5.
3? Really? Okay.
Let me double check. I think I gave it 3.5. I did. Yes, I did. I did give it 3.5.
Okay.
Because, like, I think it was a very pretty film. I enjoyed the monsters. For a lot of the film, I was kind of just sitting and enjoying watching it. It didn't like, it blurred together quite a lot, which is why I didn't love it. And maybe it was just the fact that I was a little bit delirious while I was watching it.
That probably helped.
But I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good watch. I would recommend it generally to people. Like, if you like a vampire film, I would recommend it.
Yeah.
If you like a kind of 2000s-y action horror, I would recommend it. Yeah, 2007. It's very 2007.
It is very 2007. Yeah. This was your first time watching it, wasn't it?
This was my first time watching it.
Yeah, okay. So this is, I think, the third time I've watched it through, but the previous 2 times were years ago.
Yeah.
So I remember it really fondly. And I think I was really excited last week when we talked about it. I was really excited to go back and rewatch it. I shouldn't have.
No.
I shouldn't have rewatched it because it did not hold up to what I had in my memory. It was just, I don't know. There were aspects that I still enjoyed. I like Josh Hartnett. I like Melissa George. I like the guy that plays Bo. I can't remember his name.
No, neither can I.
And I like Danny Houston. But basically all of the other supporting cast just got on my nerves because they were shit.
Mark Boone Jr.
Yeah,
he's in Die Hard 2.
He's in quite a lot of stuff, but he's got a very distinctive look. He's got the very curly hair, big bushy beard. Yeah. He's quite a heavy set guy. Very deep voice.
Sons of Anarchy.
Of course.
Of course he was in Sons of Anarchy.
So they're all great, but the rest of the cast just got on my nerves because they were not good.
Yeah.
They were not good. Even Ben Foster. I'm sorry.
I liked Ben Foster.
I hated his accent. I thought his acting was garbage.
Yeah.
There's so many better Ben Foster films.
I think the only other, I don't know if I know him from that many films. The only other one that I know, to my shame, because I loved it when I was younger, I know that it's not a good film, was X-Men 3. When he played Angel.
Yeah, he played Angel in X-Men 3.
And it was funny, like, when he was, he's, like, really preppy. He's, like, perfectly, like, pristine, short blonde hair. He's, like, very kind of, like, rich New York, handsome, and, like, very well dressed. And then seeing him in this when he's, like, eating raw mince in a diner, just, like, absolutely disheveled. I was like, you know what, I'm into that. I kind of like that about him in this. He's a bit scrunkly.
Didn't vibe with me. He was just kind of annoying, and he killed all his dogs.
He did kill the dogs, which is
all these gorgeous huskies.
Not good.
Made me sad.
Yeah.
So yeah, some good, some bad acting. The monster design is phenomenal. I absolutely love it. It's probably one of my favorite vampire designs, if not my favorite. I think they're just so brutal, so feral, and genuinely scary, especially when you put it within the setting of being trapped in this small town for 30 days. Like, that is terrifying. Speaking of, the setting's great.
Yeah.
The setup of the plot is great. The actual plot is virtually non-existent.
Yeah.
Like, there's really no progress. We said it a couple of times. There's virtually no progression through the film. And scenes like, there's the scene where Bo sacrifices himself. That's kind of just to advance the plot a bit. He didn't need to do that. Yeah. He's just like, it's my turn to go. I'm gonna save you guys. And he just gets in a van and launches through all the vampires and then dies. And you're like, okay, well, fine. And then the other boy who's got the dad who has like dementia.
Yeah.
And he goes out and runs after his dad, even though he's like, the dad is a liability. I'm sorry. You got to cut your losses. Like, it's like A Quiet Place, right? Yeah. If you've got some baby that's screaming, I'm sorry.
You're saying we just got to kill the baby?
They made it work, right? In A Quiet Place. I've no idea how they made it work, because if that was me, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna live, and I'm gonna live anyway. Same goes for animals, right? My dog's a loud dog. If we got in that situation, I'd have some terrible things to have to do to survive. I don't like thinking about it. I don't like the thought of it, but you know.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. If I'm ever put in a survival situation, I'll just die. I don't care if it's like, oh, you can't talk, or you can't make any noise, or the aliens will get you. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I'll just die.
Ah, that's fine.
I'll
so you're
just die.
saying you wouldn't
zombie
kill
apocalypse,
a baby or a dog
vampire
to save
attack.
yourself?
Nah.
Okay. Well, you're
I wouldn't do much.
better man than I.
I wouldn't do much to save myself. Like, zombie apocalypse, I wouldn't even bother, like, hoarding food.
You'd at least try.
Nah.
A little bit.
Nah.
Okay.
Wait until the Wi-Fi went out, and then I just taught myself.
Well, that's cheery. I'm going to finish off my notes on this, and then we're going to swiftly end this episode. There's a lot of like those little moments where like it feels like it just happened to advance the plot a little bit.
Yeah.
There's not really any progression. There's no them running out of food. Gradually, it's just like, oh, it's day 20 and we have no food. Better go to the store.
Yeah.
So that's
maybe why I
annoyed
was
me.
Connecting it as well with The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely that sort of like, they can survive for months and months and months and have basically nothing interesting happen. But then as soon as it's like worth it for the plot, suddenly the stakes are really high and everybody dies.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
It was there was definitely elements of that which were annoying. The dialogue as well didn't help a plot like this, other than the vampires dialogue, which was pretty badass. I liked that shit. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a wasted opportunity for me. There's so much that it could have been. It could have been a lot scarier, I think. They could have definitely lent into the horror a bit more.
Yeah.
But it becomes a bit action, as you say, like 2007 action flicky, and I don't like that kind of flicky.
Kind of more along the lines of like a Resident Evil or like an underworld kind of
that kind of vibe,
kind of horror film where it's really just like a kind of action film with vampires in it.
Yeah. In saying that, despite being kind of in the middle of the fence on this one, I would recommend it if you're in the mood for like a popcorn flick. You just want to turn your brain off, enjoy some vampires. Yeah, but I gave it a 2.5 out of 5.
Yeah,
middle of the road.
That's not bad.
I just feel I don't know. If you'd asked me before I rewatched it, I probably would have said like 4 or 5.
Yeah,
genuinely, because I have such a fond memory of watching this film, but rewatching it, I was like, shouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
that was a silly thing to do. There you go. That's you can't win them all.
You can't
win them all.
Okay,
cool. Well, that is comic book movies. There's not very many horror book comic films.
No, there's not. I do kind of wish I had picked Blade 2, because Blade 2 I think is still really good. I didn't actually wind up double billing it with 30 Days of Night like I said I was going to. So maybe based on comic books 2 at some point in the future.
I'd like to find another Killer Condom.
I can think of a few, well, not other Killer Condoms. I can think of a few. I mean, like Creepshow.
Creepshow
is, well, it's not actually based on comic books. Literally, it's inspired by comic books. But like the original Tales from the Crypt and Vault of Horror films, the only reason I didn't pick those is because it wasn't that long since we did Asylum.
That's true.
They're basically the same as Asylum. Those Amicus anthology films. But like, those are 2 really good films.
Well, maybe do more. Maybe do more. Or maybe we'll crop up in other themes. Who knows? But for next week, we have another exciting themed episode. Like, I know they're all themed, but like this is specifically themed for The Evil Dead.
Yeah.
That's right, because Rise is not long out. I know it's going to have been a few weeks by the time this episode comes out.
It's been out for about a week at time of recording. So.
Yeah. But I was on the fence about this film, the new one. And then I saw a lot of reviews coming in and saying that it is actually worth watching. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's give it a shot. And then you were talking about how you wanted to revisit the original. Yeah. I was like, that sounds like an episode.
Went to see the new one last week. I went to see Rise about a week ago. So it might, unfortunately, like this episode we've just recorded, I'm kind of thinking like, I shouldn't have waited so long after watching the film to record, but then maybe I'll need to try and watch Rise again. But yeah, like it was last week I went to see it at the cinema. I have plenty of opinions about it, so it'll be fun to talk about those.
I'm excited, yeah.
And then we got a message on our Instagram. We got a comment on one of our Instagram posts saying, "Hey, can you go and cover the original Evil Dead?" It was actually my girlfriend's dad that commented that, asking us to go and cover. I don't know if he's bothering to listen. Hi, Rob. So we're gonna go and do the original Evil Dead.
Sam Raimi's original Evil Dead.
I'm excited to watch it again because I remember really enjoying it when I last watched it, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
There we go. So the oldest and the newest of the Evil Dead.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I've not seen the original in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen the new one yet. I'm going to see it this weekend. I'm keen to see what it's all about. Give it a good old rating. So yeah, we'll have a chat about that next week. Join us for the Evil Dead episode.
Woo!
The first of possibly multiple. There are so many of those films we could do.
There's only 5.
We could do 2.5 episodes.
We could do 1.5 more after this one.
Yeah, that's still something. There's no more fog films. We can't do another fog episode.
That's true. Yeah.
Oh well.
Whoops.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining us and listening to this horror double bill. We hope you enjoyed Killer Condom and 30 Days of Night. And if you didn't, well, that's fine. That's your opinion. And honestly, they weren't the best of films.
No,
so
they weren't great.
You're justified in that. We will see you next week for The Evil Dead. Bye all.
Bye-bye.